The scent of fresh paint and new beginnings still clung to the air in my sun-drenched kitchen. I'd just wrestled a heavy box labelled Kitchen Essentials onto the newly installed quartz countertop, the smooth, cool surface a testament to years of scrimping and saving. My own countertop, in my own house. A giddy smile played on my lips as I sliced through the packing tape with a utility knife. This was it, the culmination of a dream I'd nurtured since I was a little girl, sketching floor plans in a spiral notebook. My phone buzzed on the counter, shattering the peaceful moment. Caller ID, Mum. I swiped to answer, tucking the phone between my ear and shoulder as I pulled out a stack of familiar, mismatched coffee mugs. Hi, Mom. What's up? Maya, Mija, thank goodness I reached you. Isabella Rodriguez's voice was a whirlwind of cheerful, slightly breathless energy, a tone that usually preceded a request I'd find hard to refuse. We have the most wonderful news. Absolutely perfect timing with you getting settled in your new place. I paused, a chipped Snoopy mug in my hand. Oh, what is it? Well, she trilled, the excitement practically vibrating through the phone. Sophia and David and the kids, they're going to come live with you. Isn't that just perfect? Your new house has plenty of room. You said 2 spare bedrooms, right? It's the answer to all our prayers. The Snoopy mug slipped from my numb fingers. It hit the pristine, newly grouted tile floor with a sickening crack, shattering into a dozen pieces. My voice, when I finally found it, was a choked whisper. Live with me? Mum, what on earth are you talking about? No one even asked me about this. The journey to this house, to this moment of unpacking my own belongings in my own kitchen, had been a marathon, not a sprint. For nearly a decade, ever since I landed my first decent-paying graphic design job after college, I'd been a financial squirrel, hoarding every spare acorn. I'd lived in a series of increasingly cramped, sometimes sketchy apartments. The one with the perpetually leaky faucet, the one where the upstairs neighbour practiced tap dancing at 3 a.m, the one that smelled faintly of old cat food no matter how much I scrubbed. I'd driven a battered 20-year-old Toyota until its engine literally sighed its last breath on the side of the highway. Vacations were staycations. New clothes were thrift store finds. Restaurant meals were a rare birthday treat. Every extra dollar, every bonus, every tax refund went straight into a high-yield savings account labelled Future House Fund. My friends were buying trendy handbags, going on European backpacking trips, upgrading their cars. I was brown bagging my lunch and religiously tracking my credit score. Sometimes it felt isolating, like I was on a different life track. But the vision of that front door, my front door with my name on the mortgage, kept me going. The actual home buying process had been a fresh hell, navigating pre-approvals, endlessly scrolling through Zillow, the gut-wrenching anxiety of making an offer in a competitive market. I'd lost out on 3 houses before my offer on this one. A charming, slightly neglected 2-bedroom bungalow with a surprisingly large backyard in a quiet, tree-lined suburban neighbourhood was finally accepted. 2 bedrooms and a small den I'd already mentally converted into my dream home office. I'd done it all solo, no parental assistance with the down payment, no co-signer for the mortgage, just my own hard-earned money, my own grit, and an almost fanatical devotion to my budgeting spreadsheet. The day I got the keys, I'd sat on the dusty living room floor, surrounded by empty rooms echoing with possibility, and just cried. Tears of relief, of exhaustion, of immense, overwhelming pride. This house wasn't just bricks and mortar. It was a symbol of my independence, my resilience, my ability to make my dreams a reality. My sanctuary. Now, less than a week after closing, before I'd even managed to unpack half my boxes or decide on a paint colour for the living room, my mother was casually announcing that my sanctuary was about to become a refuge for my older sister, Sophia, her husband David, and their 2 perpetually sticky, often screaming young children. Leo, aged 4, and Mia, who was nearly 2. "Oh, don't be silly, Mika," Mum chirped, completely dismissing my stunned silence, the sound of the shattered mug apparently lost in her own enthusiasm. "It's the perfect solution. You know things have been so hard for poor Sophia and David. Their lease is up at the end of the month, and that horrible landlord won't renew because he wants to sell the building. They've been looking, but with their credit, and 2 little ones, it's impossible to find anything decent they can afford right now." Sophia's precarious housing situation wasn't entirely news to me. For years, she and David had lurched from one minor financial crisis to another. David was a nice enough guy, but seemed to drift between low-paying jobs with an alarming frequency. Sophia, while loving, had never been particularly adept at managing money, always preferring the immediate gratification of a new outfit or a salon visit over a savings account. They'd overspent, made some questionable choices, and had a tendency to view family as a perpetual safety net, with me often being the primary weaver of that net. I'd loaned them money for rent, more times than I could count, money I knew I'd never see again. I'd co-signed for a car loan for them years ago, a decision that had come back to bite me when they missed payments. My parents, Carlos and Isabella Rodriguez, were traditional in their views. Family was everything, and family helping family usually translated to, "Maya, your sister needs you." My father, a retired construction foreman, was a man of few words but strong opinions, believing implicitly in familial obligation, especially towards the child he perceived as needing more help. My mother, a part-time retail associate, was the emotional core, the one who wielded guilt and appeals to family unity with practiced skill. In recent weeks, the hints about Sophia's plight had been escalating. "Poor Sophia," Mum would sigh during our weekly phone calls. "It's just so terribly hard for her trying to find a new place with those 2 little ones underfoot. And David isn't having much luck with his job search." Dad would grunt in agreement. "Family has to stick together in tough times, Maya. That's what matters." I'd felt sympathy, of course. I loved my niece and nephew, even if their chaotic energy could be overwhelming. But I'd assumed sticking together meant offering emotional support, maybe helping Sophia search for apartment listings online, perhaps even offering a small, manageable loan for a security deposit if they found a viable place. Never in my wildest nightmares had I imagined it meant them moving into my brand new hard-won house. "Mom, listen to me," I said, my voice firmer now, the initial shock giving way to a surge of panic. "This is my house. I just bought it. I have plans for it. A home office in the den, a guest room for when my guests visit. Sophia and David and 2 small children. That's not a temporary house guest situation. That's a whole other family moving in." "Don't be dramatic, Maya," Mum said, her tone shifting from cheerful to slightly impatient. "Of course, it's temporary, just for a few months. 6 at the absolute most, just until they get back on their feet, find a new place. What are they supposed to do, live on the street? They have nowhere else to go. Your father and I have already talked it over. We'll come over on Saturday morning, help them move their things in. It'll be fine, you'll see. You'll barely even know they're there." Barely know a family of 4, including a toddler and a preschooler, were there, in my not very large 2-bedroom bungalow. The absurdity of it was staggering, and the fact that this entire life-altering decision had been made for me, without so much as a courtesy consultation, made my blood boil. "Mum," I said, trying to keep my voice even despite the tremor of anger, "Saturday is not going to work. This is not going to work. We need to talk about this. Properly." "There's nothing to talk about, Mija," she said, a new, firmer edge to her voice. "It's decided. It's the right thing to do. We're family." And then she hung up, leaving me standing in my new kitchen amidst the shards of a broken Snoopy mug and the ruins of my peaceful Saturday morning. The pressure campaign began almost immediately. Not 10 minutes after Mum hung up, my father called. Carlos Rodriguez didn't waste time on pleasantries. "Maya!" His voice boomed through the phone, already laced with disapproval. "Your mother just called me. She said you were being uncooperative about Sophia." "Dad, Mum told me she's planning to move Sophia and her entire family into my new house on Saturday without even asking me," I protested, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "This is my house. I just bought it. I haven't even unpacked." "And Sophia is your sister," he retorted, his tone brooking no argument. "She has 2 small children. They are in trouble. This is what family does, Maya. We step up. We help. It's not forever. It's temporary just until David finds a good job and they can get their own place again. Don't make this a bigger deal than it needs to be. Don't be selfish." Selfish. The word stung. Was it selfish to want to enjoy the home I'd worked tirelessly for? Was it selfish to want my own space, my own peace, after years of sacrificing for this very goal? Next came the call from Sophia herself. Her voice was tearful, quavering with practiced vulnerability. "Maya?" "Oh, Maya, thank God Mum told you. We've been so worried. We literally have nowhere else to go after the 30th. David's been looking everywhere, but you know how it is." A sniffle. "Please, Maya, just for a little while. Think of Leo and Mia. You wouldn't want your precious niece and nephew to be homeless, would you? We'd be so quiet, you'd hardly notice us. And I'd help with cooking and cleaning, I promise." David, her husband, was silent in the background. He always was. Sophia was the designated emotional negotiator. I felt a wave of guilt, quickly followed by a surge of resentment. They were experts at this, at leveraging family ties and childhood memories to get what they wanted. I'd fallen for it so many times before. But this was different. This wasn't lending a few $100s or co-signing a lease. This was surrendering my home, my dream. That evening, I called Ben, my boyfriend of 3 years. He listened patiently as I poured out the whole insane story, my voice cracking with frustration and disbelief. "They want to do what?" he exclaimed, his indignation a welcome balm to my frayed nerves. "Maya, that's completely out of line. It's your house. You just bought it. You get to decide who lives there, not them. And temporary, with 2 small kids and a husband who can't hold down a job, that has permanent nightmare written all over it." "I know," I wailed, "but they're making me feel like the most horrible, selfish person in the world for even hesitating. Mum's already talking about how disappointed Abuela would be in me from heaven." "That's emotional blackmail, Maya, and you know it," Ben said firmly. "You need to stand your ground. This is your home, your sanctuary. You've worked too damn hard for this to let them just bulldoze you." His support solidified my resolve, which had been wavering under the combined assault of parental authority and sisterly tears. But I knew it wouldn't be easy. The next day, Mum called again, her voice softer, more conciliatory. "The compromise, Mija," she began gently. "I've been thinking, maybe having the whole family there right away is a bit much with you just moving in. I understand." My heart leaped with a tiny spark of hope. "So, what if Sophia and David and the kids just used the spare bedroom and maybe Leo could sleep on a little cot in your den for a few months? The den you were going to make your office? You'd barely even know they were there that way. They could use the back door mostly. It would just be until they find something, really. It's the Christian thing to do, Maya. Family first." My spark of hope died. This wasn't a compromise. It was just a slightly less invasive occupation. And the implication was clear. If I refused, I wasn't just selfish, I was a bad Christian and a disappointment to my sainted grandmother. Later that afternoon, while I was in the middle of trying to assemble a complicated IKEA bookcase, my doorbell rang. It was Mom and Dad, unannounced. "We were just in the neighbourhood, thought we'd drop by and see how you're settling in," Mum chirped, already stepping past me into the foyer before I could say a word. Dad followed, his eyes already scanning the layout. They weren't just dropping by, they were casing the joint. Mum walked straight into the larger of the two spare bedrooms. "Oh, this is a lovely room, perfect for Sophia and David, and it gets such nice afternoon sun." Dad peered into the den. "Yeah, this'll work for the boy. Put a small bed in the corner, plenty of space." They were mentally arranging my sister's family into my house that I hadn't even finished furnishing for myself. The audacity was breathtaking. I tried to reason with them, to offer alternatives. "Mum, Dad, I understand Sophia is in a tough spot. I really do. I can help her look for apartments online. I can even lend her some money for a security deposit if she finds a place she can afford. But they cannot move in here." My offers were brushed aside as if I hadn't spoken. "That's not enough, Maya," Dad said, his voice firm. "They need a roof over their heads now, not later, not maybes." "Your sister needs stability for those children," Mom added, her eyes pleading. "And you have it right here. It would be cruel to deny them." It felt like I was drowning. Every attempt I made to assert my own needs, my own boundaries, was met with a fresh wave of guilt, obligation, and accusations of selfishness. I went to bed that night with a knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. Saturday was looming, the day they planned to orchestrate the invasion. I lay awake for hours, staring at the unfamiliar shadows on my new bedroom ceiling. Ben's words echoed in my mind. "Stand your ground." But how? Polite refusals weren't working. Logical arguments were ignored. Emotional appeals were turned back on me. Sometime in the small hours of Friday morning, a new, terrifying, but also strangely empowering idea began to form. If they wouldn't respect my words, maybe they would respect a locked door. A very firmly locked door. My hands trembled as I Googled emergency locksmith services near me. I found one with good reviews that offered same-day service. Taking a deep, shaky breath, I made the call as soon as they opened at 8 a.m. The locksmith, a burly, no-nonsense man named Frank, arrived by mid-morning. He was tactful, didn't ask too many questions, as he efficiently replaced the locks on my front door, my back door, and the service door leading to the garage. The sound of the drill, the click of the new cylinders sliding into place, felt like a declaration of independence. He handed me a set of new keys. They felt heavy in my palm, solid and real. A point of no return. Next, I drove to a home improvement store and bought a smart doorbell with a camera and two-way audio. Ben came over and helped me install it. Seeing the live feed on my phone, the clear view of my front porch, gave me a small measure of control. That afternoon, I composed a text message. My fingers hovered over the send button for a long minute before I finally pressed it. It went to a group chat with Mum, Dad, and Sophia. Due to the ongoing and immense pressure to allow Sophia, David, and their children to move into my home against my clearly stated wishes, I have taken steps to secure my property. I have changed the locks. I will not be home tomorrow, Saturday. My decision on this matter is final. This house is not available for them to live in. Please do not attempt to come here tomorrow with moving trucks or personal belongings. I turned off my phone, my heart hammering against my ribs. I felt sick with anxiety, but also a strange, fierce surge of adrenaline. I had drawn my line in the sand. I spent Saturday morning at Ben's apartment, jumping at every notification on my phone, which I'd reluctantly turned back on. Around 10:30 a.m., the smart doorbell app chimed. Motion detected at your front door. My breath caught in my throat. I opened the app. And there they were. My parents' familiar sedan pulled up to the curb, followed closely by a battered U-Haul truck that I recognized as belonging to one of David's cousins. Sophia, David, Leo, and Mia piled out of the sedan. Sophia was carrying a laundry basket piled high with clothes. David was wrestling a beat-up suitcase out of the trunk. They looked tired, stressed, but also expectant, confident. My father strode up to my front door, my mother and Sophia trailing behind him. He pulled out a key, the spare I'd given him for emergencies when I first closed on the house, before this nightmare began, and tried to insert it into the lock. I watched, my stomach churning, as the key scraped uselessly, refusing to turn. Confusion flickered across his face. He tried again. Nothing. Annoyance began to set in. He rattled the doorknob. Then he started banging on the door, loud, demanding thuds. "Maya, open up! What's wrong with this lock? We're here! Let us in!" His voice, muffled but clear, came through my phone speaker. Sophia joined in, her voice high-pitched. "Maya, come on, we've got all the kids' stuff. It's hot out here." Taking a deep, shaky breath, I pressed the microphone icon on the doorbell app. My voice, when it came out, trembled slightly, but was surprisingly firm. "Dad, Mum, Sophia, I told you in my text message yesterday, you are not moving in. The locks have been changed. This is my house, and my decision is final. You need to leave." A stunned silence followed my announcement. Then all hell broke loose. "What did you say?" My father's roar was so loud it distorted the audio. "You changed the locks on your own family. Are you out of your mind, Maya? Open this door right now, or so help me God." "Miha, please." My mother's voice was a wail of anguish, amplified by the speaker. "How can you do this to us? To your sister? To these innocent little children? They have nowhere else to go. Have you no heart?" Sophia started screaming, a torrent of accusations and insults. "You're a horrible sister, Maya. Selfish, cold-hearted. We're family. You're supposed to help us. I can't believe you'd do this." She actually started to pull a box out of the U-Haul and set it defiantly on my porch. Neighbours were definitely starting to peek out from behind their curtains now. Leo, sensing the tension, started to cry, a loud, piercing wail. Mia quickly joined in. It was a full-blown meltdown, a public spectacle unfolding on my brand-new doorstep. "This is my private property," I stated, my voice as calm as I could make it, though my insides were churning. "I have told you, repeatedly, that you cannot move in here. If you do not remove your belongings from my porch and leave the premises within the next 10 minutes, I will have no choice but to call the police and report you for trespassing." The word police seemed to momentarily stun them into silence. The screaming stopped. My father stared at the doorbell camera, his face a mask of thunderous fury. My mother was openly sobbing now, leaning against the porch railing. Sophia looked aghast, then furious again. David, for the first time, looked genuinely worried. After a long, tense standoff, filled with more muttered threats and tearful recriminations, they slowly, reluctantly, began to load Sophia's meagre belongings back into the U-Haul. My father cast one last, venomous glare at the doorbell camera before getting into his car and peeling away from the curb. The U-Haul followed lumbering down the street. I watched them go on my phone screen, then close the app, my whole body trembling. I had done it. I had held the line. My house was still mine. But the cost felt immense. The days that followed were a barrage of angry voicemails from my father, tearful, guilt-inducing texts from my mother, and a few scathing messages from extended family members who had clearly only heard one, very biased side of the story. Aunt Rosa called me cruel and unnatural. Uncle Benicio said I had broken my mother's heart and shamed the family name. It hurt, deeply. But with Ben's unwavering support, I stood firm. I saved the doorbell footage just in case. I even drafted a calm, factual email explaining my side of the story, outlining my years of financial independence and my clear ownership of the house, and sent it to the relatives who had contacted me. I doubted it changed many minds, but it made me feel slightly less like a silent victim. Slowly, painstakingly, I began to reclaim my house and my peace. Each box I unpacked, each piece of furniture I assembled, each nail I hammered into a wall to hang a picture, felt like an act of defiance, an assertion of my right to my own space, my own life. The house began to transform from a battleground into a sanctuary, my sanctuary. I invested in a more comprehensive security system, a small but significant symbol of my newfound commitment to protecting my boundaries. The locks I changed weren't just physical barriers against an unwanted intrusion. They were emotional and psychological ones too. I was learning the hard way that sometimes protecting your peace means making decisions that will inevitably disappoint or even anger the people you love. It was a bitter lesson, but a necessary one. Weeks turned into months. The furious calls and texts dwindled, replaced by a cold, resentful silence from my parents. Sophia and her family, I heard through the grapevine, had ended up moving into a cramped, 2-bedroom apartment in a less desirable part of town, sharing it with another relative. It wasn't ideal, but they had a roof over their heads. I settled into my new life in my new house. I painted the walls my favourite colours, planted a small herb garden in the backyard, and finally set up my dream home office in the den. The quiet evenings, the freedom to decorate as I pleased, the simple joy of existing in a space that was truly, unequivocally mine, was a balm to my bruised soul. The relationship with my parents and sister was fractured, perhaps irreparably. There was a profound sadness in that, a grief for the family I wished I had. But there was also an undeniable, liberating relief. I was no longer their default solution, their emergency fallback. I was Maya Rodriguez, homeowner, master of her own domain. One chilly afternoon, about a year after the showdown on my porch, my phone rang. It was my mother. Her voice was subdued, lacking its usual forced cheerfulness. "Maya," she said quietly, "it's your mother." A pause. "Sophia and David, they're thinking of moving to a smaller town a few hours away. Rent is much cheaper there, and David thinks he might have a line on a more stable job, but..." Another pause. "They need about $1,500 for the moving truck rental and the first month's rent on a little place they found. I know things have been very difficult between us all, but this could be a real fresh start for them, for the children. I was wondering if you could find it in your heart, Miha, to help your sister with this one thing, just to get them on their feet in a new place." The old familiar guilt tried to prick at me, but it was weaker now, overshadowed by a year of hard-won peace. She wasn't demanding, just asking, almost pleading, but the pattern felt so familiar. So, this is the dilemma? After everything, what should I do? A. Offer the $1,500 as a one-time, no-strings-attached gift, sending it directly to the new landlord or moving company. See it as a final act of familial assistance, hoping it genuinely helps Sophia achieve independence, and perhaps signals a willingness on my part to rebuild a respectful family connection down the line, if they are capable of it. B. politely but firmly refuse. State that while I truly wish Sophia and her family well in their new endeavour, I am no longer in a position to provide financial bailouts. Explain that they need to manage their own finances and relocations, and my priority remains my own financial stability and peace of mind. What path should I choose now after all that has happened